and we can go from there.
Sounds perfect. Yeah. Where do you want to start in that line of inquiry?
Well, I can start it off from what I remember, because his mom, my Aunt Rosie, and my mother were 2 years apart. Mm-hmm. And there were a number of years between my mother and the older children. 7 years, maybe 6 years.
Now,
I'm not sure.
Was your mom older or younger than Aunt Rosie?
She was older.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's right. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Rosalie was the youngest.
And they looked like twins. So it didn't matter where they went, and they both went to Zion Church. So, you know, one would come in and they'd say, Aunt Rosie, you know, they'd say, hello, Miss Tynert, and they'd come to Georgetown to Piggly Wiggly, and that was worse. You know, they say, oh, Miss Doering, how are you today? And Mama say, no, I'm Miss Tynert. So anyway, I found that to be an interesting happening, and of course Aunt Rosie was one of my favorite people. I remember her tremendously green thumb, and on the house on Austin Avenue, you would come into go up some stairs to the living room, and she had, down a few steps was a big glassed-in greenhouse, and she had all sorts of green plants and flowers and whatever you can imagine in there. And then after they moved to Vine,
yep, Vine.
Then she had, I think, another greenhouse, and she grew orchids in that one. I don't know if she grew orchids in the first house or not, but anyway, that's what I remember. And she actually made my wedding bouquet, which was a dozen Phalaenopsis orchids, and it was gorgeous, and that was so special.
I bet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know a couple of times before we got married, and they lived on Vine Street, and she would say, well, Pat, why don't you come have supper with us and spend the night, so you don't have to drive back, and you can study. And they had an extra bedroom, and so that's what I did. I would curl up in bed and study and fall asleep, and that was really a special experience for me.
Yeah, her folks had a 49 Buick.
What?
Pat's folks had a 49 Buick back then. We were Southwestern. Yeah, that was a car that you heard it. You didn't drive it. You heard it in our figure that you couldn't turn corners.
And what they did and all that sort of thing. I know your dad was in the ginning business with my dad, or my dad worked with him in the gin business, and so that was my recollection of that until the drought in the 50s. Was it first part of the 50s? There were 7 years of drought. They had a cotton gin.
In
In
Walburg,
Walburg.
They had one in
Doering and Patricia Gin,
and they had one in Berry Creek
Berry
too.
Creek too, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then that, of course, there weren't any cotton crops for 7 years, 6 years, something like that, and that wasn't real good for business.
Well, the first year when we were up here, or when I was up here, and broke the drought in 57.
Right, that was 57.
They had, it rained so much, and all the cotton was spotted. They never got it out of the fields. Or never got a bunch of it out of the fields.
The home that I remember was on Austin Avenue.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I guess I must have been about 6 years old when they changed the highway through town. It came in on that Round Rock Road,
Mm-hmm.
and then turned on 8th Street, and then back to the right toward the river.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, Dad was in the cotton ginning business. and they were offered $25,000 for their home, and they could keep the lot.
Okay.
That's when the house was moved
Right.
right around back,
Correct.
and I forget things.
Well, that's understandable. So do I. But I remember I never did, once it got moved, I never did quite figure out, I knew the general area. It was where the, what is it, the GSA office is now, back in that area, behind UPS and all that. But anyway, I remember visiting there one day, and I had to go to the bathroom. And I said, well, where can I find the bathroom? And she says, well, why don't you use the pink bathroom? And I thought, oh. And she says, well, we've got a bathroom with pink fixtures for Beatrice, and we've got a blue bathroom, blue fixtures, and green fixtures, and I think Aunt Rosie and Uncle Charlie's bathroom was white fixtures. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is such a palace. I can't lie. I've never heard of such a thing. So.
Well, you still live in the gin house then?
Huh?
We
Yeah.
used to- yeah.
Uh-huh. So.
They lived in the gin house there for years, till 57 or 56.
Well, I remember we moved on Aunt Rosie's birthday, and I started school, went to school from the townhouse on 972 instead of from the gin house. And I don't remember what year. I think I must have been in the 53, let's see.
8th or 9th grade.
1954 maybe. No.
Do you remember living in Georgetown?
Your mom and dad?
No.
No, I do not remember that. Was that before they moved to the gin house? Or between?
Before.
Before. No, I do not remember that.
You were too young. She probably wasn't here.
I remember Beatrice saying that, she came to visit, when I was born. Her mama brought her to visit, so I just do not remember that.
You were born in the gin house?
I don't know. Don't know that either. I'm sure it says on my birth certificate, but I don't know. I guess I should check that out.
Probably says Walburg.
Probably.
In our home, when Grandma would come over, well, she said that she told everybody that those Georgetown people don't know what they're doing because they got water coming out of a pipe. And they bring their outhouse into the house.
How funny is that? I love it. I love it.
And she would love to come over and talk with what I call Aunt Sally. She was a colored.
Right, that helped your mom.
Yeah,
I remember.
Mom.
I remember that.
And Grandma would talk in German, and Sally didn't understand it. And then Sally would talk in English pretty fast, and Grandma wouldn't understand it. And they had a big time.
I bet they did.
And
Yeah.
And then I remember those two, Sally and Grandma, helping my mother fill bottles. Now, I didn't know what it was, but they were making homebrew.
Oh, all right. This is Grandma Coco, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Grandma Coco. So that's one of the, we're going way back there, which is what you wanted. That's good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Beatrice told me that when Grandma came, you know, that they had to hide all the sweets because Grandma had diabetes and she loved her sweets. So they had to put away everything sweet so that she didn't worsen her diabetes. But Beatrice didn't tell me about the homebrew. She might have been too young to, or maybe not even around. 6.
I was just 7 or 8 years old.
Okay, so Beatrice, yeah, probably wasn't
1 year old.
1 year old. Yeah, she wouldn't have remembered that. Yeah,
Grandpa.
I didn't either. I didn't know either one, actually.
Well, he died, I think, 1 year before I was born.
Oh, okay, okay. Do you know what he died of? Was it diabetes related maybe, or or heart, probably?
Back in those years, what'd you write on there? What'd they write on there?
Death certificate, yeah.
Natural causes.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, sooner or later that, you know, that does
Sooner or later,
natural
that happens
causes.
to everybody.
Yeah, right. Right.
What about any like local family traditions or anything that you grew up with?
Family traditions. Carl, do you remember what Grandpa and, I don't know, I guess that would include his mom and my mom and that sort of thing?
Yeah, anybody really.
Well, do you remember anything else about your Grandma and Grandpa Kokel? They lived down by Possum Creek, didn't they, where the horse farm is now? That was where the homestead was. And the only thing I remember about that was I think maybe we had a picnic down in that area, but I don't know if maybe your mom, do you know who acquired that property once the Kokel estate was, what happened to the house and...
What's his name? The guy that still has it right now. That's who it was sold to.
Oh, Micken?
No.
No, it wasn't Micken.
I'll think about it.
Okay, okay.
But that farm was 235 acres,
Oh, that was quite a bunch.
and they bought it for $1 an acre back then.
Oh my.
But he was using oxen and a walk-behind plow for those 235 acres. But he had a lot of help. They had 13 children, I think.
He probably put all of them to work. I think there were something like 13, and yeah, there were a lot.
But the house was down close to the creek, and today that site would really be worth the money.
Don't you know it?
Remind me
But
of
back then, nobody wanted it.
Right.
No.
Well, you know, that's, I guess in the early days, they tended to go where there was maybe timber for the houses and
Water.
land and water, and so that was, yeah, that was one of the reasons, one of the drawing points to moving down there. I know Mama told me there's pictures of the house in the Kokel book, 2-story, and you know, you had your usual living room, dining room, kitchen, and then Mom and Daddy's bedroom downstairs and 2 bedrooms upstairs. 1 room for the girls and 1 for the boys. And that's the way things were back in those days. And then, you know, and even until maybe our sons were 8 and 9 years old in the 60s, you know, somebody decided that every child needed to have their own bedroom, which I think is still stupid. You know, if people built bigger houses that they couldn't afford, and, you know, got themselves into a lot of financial problems. But that's just philosophy according to Pat, so. So
I remember the long road down to the house. It was nothing but dirt, dirt road. And when it rained, well, I remember going there with my parents. Boy, it was sloppy,
I bet.
sloppy road.
Did you walk on it or just drive on it? Did they drive it? Drive it or walk on it? Did they drive on it or walk on it?
Well, they tried to drive on it.
Okay.
But that house, wish it was still there today. However, when I came back from the Philippines in 1946, well, Dad was in charge of it. Nobody wanted to move out there. And every time he would go out there, he'd find logs where they had fire in the house.
Okay,
Vagrants
right,
were
right.
taking the house over.
I see.
And
That's sad.
several places where one of the rooms, it showed that it was on fire.
Oh my.
Nobody in the Coco family wanted to do anything with it.
My goodness.
And so he asked me if I would tear it down. And of course I had nothing to do, I guess, coming back from the Philippines. I tore it down, board by board.
Wow. That was a long time project, wasn't it?
It was. And some of the lumber went to Hogeye Lyons here in Georgetown, who was a builder.
Okay.
And there's lots of lumber around Georgetown from that house. But then I met her after the war. That's another story. But
that's not this.
I tore the house down and used all that lumber to build a garage apartment.
Okay. The garage apartment, was it here in Georgetown?
Yeah.
By the old house on Austin Avenue, or was it just separate on a different?
On a different deal that was on.
Seventh in college.
Okay.
What?
Seventh in college.
Seventh in college? Yeah, I remember now. But that's the way we lost that house.
Well, it's sad that, I guess it might have been, was it financial that nobody wanted to move down there, or was it the fact that the roads were not good enough, or probably a
It
combination?
was so far out in the country.
Yeah.
Nobody around.
Right.
Walburg.
Yeah. Well, people nowadays like to live close to shopping areas too. So.
Well, that wasn't too
Yeah.
far from the mercantile though, back in that day and time.
Yeah, I think Mama said that she and Aunt Rosie rode horses to school.
Yeah. Yeah, she said that. Yeah, I remember that.
So.
No, where were the horses?
I guess they came from the house. I don't know. Did they? You don't remember horses down there at Grandma and Grandpa's house?
No.
No. I don't know.
She sure told us that she she rode horses in the wintertime to Zion School. She and Rosie. So, you know, you may have been big and gone by then.
What?
You're a lot older than they are, aren't you? They were, aren't you? She was.
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, she was. My grossmom was 97, and he's 95 already. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
She's been going what since the middle of 70s, late 70s, or late 80s.
I have it written down. I could find it for you if you need to know, but it's not that important.
Well, I didn't know a lot of the brothers and sisters from the Coker.
I didn't either.
I knew Aunt Ella, Aunt Selma,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Christina
Christina.
Boohorn.
That's about it. But no, then I knew Aunt Pauline that married into the Coker family.
Correct, correct.
And had those children. And I remember when Victor died, he was a farmer a long time until he said he got some sense. And he opened a barber shop in Georgetown.
Right.
And it's one office north of the Palace Theater
Okay.
that's there now.
Who
Right.
was that?
Victor, he
Yeah,
went.
he cut my hair.
Did
When
he?
I came to Southwestern, he cut my hair. Oh yeah, he was over there, and then they moved over on the south side of the square for a while.
On Austin Avenue,
They can't well on off that Avenue, but really what
Between-
7th Street or 8th Street, whichever going.
between 8th and 9th on Austin Avenue.
I didn't hear what you said.
Between 8th and 9th on Austin Avenue, Victor's Barber Shop,
But then they
on the west side of
Yeah,
the
8th.
street.
yeah, but then he moved over to the south side of the square.
Oh, it did?
Mm-hmm. When
I didn't know
I got by 59. that's when we got married. So I remember being over there getting my hair cut. In
Oh,
fact, I got my hair cut. I never had a barbershop shave before.
And because I would visit him in a barber shop. And when he died, and the funeral was going to be at Zion, I was asked to be a pallbearer. And I was pallbearer at that funeral, and the black boy that helped Victor do the black boy did the, Skippy did the shoe shine.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He was a shoe shine person. And so the funeral was going to be out at Walburg. And I wasn't invited to do this, but I did. I invited Skippy to go to the funeral with me at Zion. And oh, he was proud.
I guess.
And I told Skippy that you got to dress up because you're going to the church out at Walburg with Miss Doering and I. And I'll pick you up at a certain time, which we did. When he came out of the house, I had told him he had to dress up. When he came out of the house, he had a black suit on. He had a white shirt and a tie
Wow.
and had shoes that matched it. And we went out to Zion, and people looked at us. There, Dolores and Carl with a black man. But anyway, we got in church, and the three of us walked down about halfway on the right side of the church, and I said, Skippy, I'm a pallbearer. I've got to go down that front row. And Dolores took Skippy and they sat in the middle of Zion Church. Dolores and the black man.
But you know, the Zion congregation, I guess, got over it. Yeah.
Oh, goodness
That's
gracious.
interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Last time you were here, Jillian, Milton Kokel,
Mm-hmm.
Victor was his daddy. You probably remember that, but that's who Victor was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember them talking a lot about the barber shop, which was cool. Yeah. So, did you speak German growing up? Was it spoken in the house? Did you speak German growing up?
Speak German.
Did you speak German at your mom and dad's house? Did y'all speak German?
They spoke German when they didn't want me to hear it.
Yeah, right.
Teaching Sally German, and that was hard.
I'll
Just
bet.
repeat it and repeat it.
Right, I guess. Right.
But
Your mother or your grandmother? Grandma Kokel or your mother?
no, that was my mother
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger.
Tonto Rosie.
Yes,
All 8 grades? Or do they have 8 grades in?
in 7th grade.
7 grades, yeah.
I lived in Georgetown, but I stayed with Aunt
Did Aunt Selma live?
Aunt Selma.
She lived in, 972, right next to where Dale's is now.
Yeah.
That I remember. Yeah. So that would have been the closest to the school, I think.
When I guess I was in 7th grade, must have been 13 or 14 years old, and it rained pretty bad, and Uncle Uncle John,
Mm-hmm.
Uncle John told me to take this Model T to school, and he let me have it, and I drove it all the way to school from Walburg.
Wow.
But when I came back, I said something. I told Uncle John that something's wrong, and he said, "Why? What is it?" I said, "It won't go fast. It's just slow, slow, slow." He said, "Did you pull this lever down?" I said, "No." He said, "If you'd have pulled this little lever,
Advance the spark, yeah.
it would have run away from you."
That might have been a good thing
Yeah,
that you didn't know that.
but then you didn't have to have a driver's license.
Right.
What was that?
Not Sally, Selma,
Mm-hmm.
were pretty close friends.
They were, sure. Yeah.
And I remember coming to the house that that the Tyners were living in. And of course Excel was about 3 or 4 years older than me, and Arlie was my age.
Mm-hmm.
And then nothing happened. And 15 years later, Aunt Ella was pregnant. She was 42 years old, I think, when she had.
There she is, right there.
I think so. I think that's right.
And
She's an accident.
Oops.
The young people then babied that little girl, and she got, what's the word for it? Not only babied, but she got everything she wanted.
Oh, okay.
Was that you? You mean
That's
she?
her.
My sisters told me I was spoiled.
You're spoiled. That's what I was trying to think of.
This one is too, aren't you?
Oh, definitely. In the best way.
But that was, I guess, that was a pretty little girl, and even though she was spoiled, she was really pretty, and everybody just loved you.
Mhm.
Then I remember Mom telling me, I guess it was when you were going to go to Southwestern. Mom told me that you were going, and what you said something like, I'm going to the university and I'm going to study, and I'm not going to be like a wife of a farmer or a barber or whatever. And she said, even though I'm spoiled, I get my way, and when I marry, I'm going to marry somebody that I don't have to work.
Boy, was that a mistake?
And who spent 40 years in the medical office? Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
Oh,
Things like that come back to me.
That's right.
Yeah.
To come back to haunt
she
you.
said, yeah, see, her mama said she wanted to marry a preacher
Registration day.
at Southwestern.
The first day of school at Southwestern.
The first day of school,
First to
Yes,
register,
we were registering to start class.
paying
not
dues.
not as a freshman.
Yeah.
Yes.
As a freshman?
Yes, yes. And we dated for 2 years, and then we got married, and then, yeah, we did. We were married the last 2 years. And first we lived on Olive,
Olive.
and it was just a block or two from school, so we walked to school. And then when Presley was born, we rented a little house on Vine, which was just up the road from where Aunt Rosie lived.
1407
And we
Vine,
had,
I want to think.
and in fact, Mimi, Aunt Rosie, we had furniture that we just borrowed from here, there, and yonder. And our living room furniture was a set of wicker that she had somewhere in her house. And that was the living room. We had the living room and dining area were together. And Presley's crib and a little breakfast table, and that was all the furniture we had in that room, except for a clothesline that was strung above the floor furnace where we could dry his diapers. So,
And
yeah.
with the table we ate at most of the time was on the back porch, and it came out of Casper's bar. Casper's bar.
My daddy Charlie and Martin, your dad, Martin, were partners,
Yeah.
and I don't think anything was ever written down or anything, but then my dad was also a partner with McCann at Andis.
I remember McCann and Andis.
And, but I think your dad and my dad and my uncle, I'm talking about Selma's husband.
Oh,
John.
John Casper, yeah.
They were
Okay, Uncle
partners
John.
at Berry Creek in a cotton gin
Okay.
for several years.
Uh-huh.
And I think Uncle John wanted to get out, so Uncle Martin and Charlie were partners. And the Walburg gin started down on Possum Creek, but it burned.
Mm.
And then the new one was, the other one then was built in Walburg.
On 1105.
What?
On 1105. Right there. Yeah.
Okay. And I happened to be on a wagon in Georgetown, one of the wagons that was going to be ginned. And I saw this smoke. And I went to Dad and showed him where the smoke was. We immediately went to Walburg. That's when the gin burned.
Was that the one that was there now and on 1105 or the one in
Berry
on
Creek.
Possum Creek?
Berry Creek.
Berry Creek.
That's
Yeah.
all.
Walburg Gin?
The Walburg gin.
Oh, okay.
1105.
Okay, I didn't know that. Mm.
And then Uncle Martin and Dad rebuilt the Walburg gin electric.
Okay,
There wasn't any electricity in Walburg at that time.
I see.
And but he got the electric company to bring electricity out there, and that helped all of Walburg to start getting
Sure.
electricity.
What year was that? Any idea?
Well, let's see. Was that 32?
Um,
Possibly 1932.
Okay.
that's why you don't remember it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember all the gin being electric, see. Of course, that was 57 when I got there.
I never heard Dad and Uncle Martin and McCann ever having any dispute.
I don't recall Dad ever talking about it either. You know, things just always seem to roll right along.
Georgetown gin that I was helping Dad grade cotton. Well, I went to, I don't say this very loud to anybody, that I went to summer school at A&M.
Why not?
grading cotton. Well, Dad fell in a Georgetown gym and broke a few ribs, and so I had to start grading the cotton that was coming from Walburg and coming from Andis and the Georgetown deal. And I would grade it, and they brought the bales into Georgetown from Andis and Walburg to the railroad,
Mhm.
and the railroad then shipped it to down to Galveston, Houston, Galveston area.
It went to Galveston. That's where the Cotton Wharf was. When I was a kid, the Cotton Wharf was on the waterfront in Galveston, where the ships came in.
Yeah.
And I had, even after I got into medicine and medical.
Martin at Walburg and McCann at Andis and ours in Georgetown, and sent it to Houston to Anderson Clayton and Company.
Mhm. I worked for them one summer.
For who?
Anderson Clayton.
Anderson Clayton Company. And sent the grades back to Walburg and Andis. And from the time that we loaded the cotton bin on the railroad in Georgetown, it took about 10 days before we got any kind of grades back from Anderson Clayton in Houston. And it was the very, very first invoice we got. I lost $10,000. I overgraded it.
Oh my.
10,000 back then.
Oh,
Lot of
that
money.
was a lot of money.
And I called Anderson Clayton and really let one of the big shots have it. He said, "You come down such and such day and we'll go over it." And I did. I went down. And he had this, they were in a big room. They were a big company.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very big.
And I remember this big room and all these samples of cotton. And he said, "Young man, come over here." And there was several black workers there, and they handed us the cotton samples.
Mhm.
And he says, "Now every time they bring us one, you grade it." Told me to grade it, which I did. And it was about 1.5 hours long.
Mm.
But I remember them sending the check back. And my dad said, "I don't know whether you graded it differently or whether we've just been in that business with Anderson Clayton so long that he gave it to us." And I don't know.
Oh.
But you didn't argue.
I didn't know.
No. Mm-mm.
Well, the Georgetown gin that Dad had a round bale. They made round bales also.
Mm.
And do you remember the round
I
bale?
don't remember that. I just.
That was just Georgetown.
Okay.
And that's where the square bales went into, weight-wise, went into the railroad. But then this truck you're talking about, they carried some of the round bales to Houston.
I remember her daddy talking about doing that, you know.
Well, I was in economics class at Southwestern, that the area there around Walburg was the #1 cotton producing area in the world. So
Yes.
yeah, they grew lots of cotton. And it was pretty. I think my daddy and cousin John's daddy colluded, and they decided that it would be good for us to pick some cotton. So they sent us across the fence, and I think maybe the Schwausches own that, I don't know. But anyway, they had a cotton field. So John and I got to pick cotton. And those, you picked it back in those days.
You
And
pulled it,
it was such beautiful white.
but you didn't break. You didn't.
No,
stem it.
you didn't.
You pulled
You just
it.
take
Yeah.
the took the cotton out of the bowl.
Out of the bowl.
Right. Put it in your sack and, yeah. Of course.
I tried that and I was 7 years old. I got about 20 feet down the rope. Maybe 30 before I gave up.
No, we had to stay all day.
Well,
we had to pick all day long.
My granddaddy said, "Nah, you done too much. Get out of here."
That time was a pretty good town.
Sure. I mean, you can see from what the remains of the businesses that are still there, and they had a bank, and was it your grandfather or great-grandfather, Henry Doering, that started this general store?
My grandfather.
Grandfather. Mm-hmm. Well, that was the hub of Walburg.
Between that and the church.
Well, yeah, right.
Well, going way back when they immigrated to the United States, it was a windish area
Right.
in Europe.
Right.
And there was a small section there, maybe the size of Williamson County,
Okay.
and they were right in the middle between Russia, Germany, and I think it was Prussia then, or
Prussia, yeah.
Poland or something.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, they were mistreated. The laborers didn't get as much money as the other people, so they decided to leave. And they went to London, England. And from London, England, they caught this boat going to Galveston. The Ben Nevis was the name of the
Right.
boat.
Right.
And several children died on that trip.
Oh yeah.
I think it was about a 30-day trip. But they landed in Galveston and got moved from that Thorndale area. They moved up to between Andice and someplace, and then back to Walburg.
Well, who went
But,
to Lee County?
Yeah,
Who did they go to Lee County too?
that's to begin with.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And then some of them were left behind when they moved up behind Florence.
Who had this store in Andice?
Jacobs.
Jacobs.
See,
Yeah. I know some of your history. You know, I've been an Auslander a long time.
well, you know how Andice got started? There was a store there. And a storm, they had a sign on the building, and the storm came and knocked off the front part and left Andice, A-N-D-I-C, and left, didn't replace those two deals. That's how Andice got its name.
It just stayed that way.
It said groceries and ice.
Oh yeah, well.
Oh, okay.
And ice.
Yeah, what three words was it?
Groceries and ice.
Yeah,
A-N-D.
how about that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's cool.
Yes. Yes.
Things get named the way people look at them. Andice. I didn't know that's where I know where Andice was. I didn't know where the name came from though. Oh, that's great.
got the name from Germany.
Germany, yeah.
Yeah.
And the Cocoa name was not Cocoa, Coachel, something like that. And they left a couple letters off. And that's how they got Cocoa.
Right.
That's like Casper got to be Casper.
Those people had a hard time. Kids to this day don't know.
No, we have no idea what kind of what they lived through. None of us do.
A lot of we people tell the old kids, the young kids, the good old days,
Right.
and they say, "Do you want to go back?"
Was Walburg the name of their community in Germany too?
Mhm.
It was about 75 miles southeast of Kassel, big city, Kassel.
Did you go to like see family heritage or just to visit?
I didn't hear.
Did you go to visit family or visit family just heritage?
No.
Like learn the history or anything?
We just went on our own.
Yes, we were traveling on our own, but we went to Walburg, Germany, because our son had been there because they had this. He was stationed at that time was in the Navy and was stationed in
Spain.
in Rota, Spain. That's right. And so they have these big festivities. Is it in October when they have the big festivities all over? So he went. He took leave and went up there just to see and he met quite a few of the Doering, the families.
Really?
So when we went over, we met him then later few years later. When we went to Germany, he knew where to take us to meet these people that he had met.
Wonderful.
And they came over here, and let's see, they stayed with Mimi and Papa. There were 3 of them, and we had them for dinner here one evening with the Caspers, and because the Caspers had met them also when they were there. But and so it was quite an experience.
They were kinfolks? They were his kinfolks?
Yes, they were the Deerings and Mr. Deering, Carl's grandfather. That's who Walburg is named for, Walburg, Germany.
Yeah.
And but we're talking about the Cocals, so I didn't want to get into the Deering thing just too much.
But they all came from the same area over there, basically.
They all fit in that one area.
Well, except for the winds then. And I thought all the time that Carl was 100% German until not too many years ago. Mimi never talked about being Wendish.
Really?
She was, and she talked about being German.
Yeah, the Kogels are Wendish.
Yes, they are.
Yes,
Right.
So are the Tyners.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
It's like a,
And the Curios.
yeah.
Right. Right.
The Curios or Wens? Oh, they are. I'm Swedish, so I don't know what anybody is, really.
But when we were
I'm American, so I don't know either.
You're American.
when we were going to get married, my mother told her sisters, I guess all three of them that were there in Walburg, that Carl is marrying a Swede from Austin. And Mom told me they said it won't last a year.
How many years has that been now?
Almost 70 years
Oh
now.
my word!
Wow.
Going to be 70 years in September.
My goodness, goodness, goodness.
Well, you still could have a divorce, I guess.
It just goes to show if you try, it will work.
That's right.
Amen.
And it's pretty well full-blooded because her dad was an Anderson and her mother was a Johnson.
Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm.